Hello humans, and welcome back to another episode of RD2H Road to Happiness. If you're new here to RD2H, then welcome. RD2H stands for Finding Our Own Road to Happiness. I talk about a variety of subjects on this show, including finance, current events, lifestyle, psychology, pretty much anything that you can think of to try to make us a better person than we were yesterday. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about how growth happens in cycles and how we tend to think that, it's a constant hustle mentality of trying to become our best selves. But something I've been learning recently is, in fact, that I'll go through periods where I feel like I am constantly improving and I'm on that grind, so to say. And then I'll go through periods where I'm not really doing anything. And with the hustle mentality that's, prevalent in our society, I find it hard for me during those pauses, during those break periods, to really accept the fact that I'm still improving, even if it's not right in front of my face. So since that's something that I've been battling myself lately and trying to understand that, literally so cliche, but nothing in nature grows 24/7. So why do we expect ourselves to do the same thing? And when I look back on where I was a year or two ago, the progress is undeniable. It's absolutely right in front of my face. But as you're going through the phases and you're, going through the cycle of life, it doesn't always feel like that. And it's really hard to kind of manage those emotions and not get on yourself when you're going through one of those break periods, but to understand how the process works. So this week's episode, we're going to be going over that and basically just the cycles and how sometimes, like I said, we have go periods and sometimes we don't, and that's completely okay. On this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about the social expectations and culture of, this hustle mentality that we go through in modern society. And then I'm going to go into how, there's so many different cycles, and it's just nature that we go through different periods in our life and how nature presents itself to go through these up and down periods, and how we need to start looking at ourselves in that kind of perspective as well. Okay, so lately I've been starting my episodes with a quote, and I like this because it kind of brings, some perspective and some other outside resources into the episode. So today's quote is, "There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self, a constant battle with the man in the mirror." And I liked this quote because, that's what we represent here at RD2H, right? Being a better person today than you were yesterday. And going on that, like I always say, you're only in competition with yourself. You are only competing with who your former self was and trying to get to your best self. Because when we start competing with everybody around us and we start to, compare ourselves to others around us, we kind of do ourselves a disservice, because when you're comparing yourself to others, you have to realize that you're not on the same track as them. You're never going to win if you're in a battle with other people. And, they say that comparison is the thief of joy, and that is the most accurate thing ever, because it isn't until you start only competing with yourself and comparing yourself to you that you actually see that progress and you're able to let go of these expectations of trying to be equal to others in the way that you perceive them. Because, especially with the social media age, we're constantly comparing ourselves to others, but it's a false reality that is put in front of us. It's a perception of how well we think others are doing rather than how they actually are doing. We only see a small percentage of other people's lives, and it's easy to, put them on a pedestal and award them for maybe some goals that they've hit or some accomplishments that they've hit, but you're only seeing the good things. You're not seeing the bad things. And I feel like when it comes to us, we're so quick to see the bad in ourselves, but we're not as quick to give ourselves applause and, praise for the things that we actually do right. We love to tell ourselves that we could do better and that we didn't hit this mark, but we don't do the same when it comes to the things that we actually do good, the improvements we're actually making. We kind of override those and be like, oh, it's good, but it could be better. But it isn't until you start to appreciate the milestones that you take that you actually enjoy the process. And it's enjoying the process that gets us to where we want to be, because I say it all the time, yes, when it comes to this rat race that we're in, escaping the rat race is tied to monetary values, and we look at money as if it is like this goal, this like prize. It's a symbol though. Money is a symbol representing the idea of freedom. And so we confuse the actual goal, which is like freedom, being able to do what we want, being able to just live our lives, which is inherently what we are supposed to be doing as humans. We built this whole construct of like working and society and capitalism and, you know, a system that we are born in and forced into. And the goal at the end of the day is to be able to break out of that system. And the only way to break out of that system in the world that we live in is through monetary values, is through gaining a bunch of money and becoming successful. And so inherently in our brains, we look at that symbol, we look at that, you know, status quo of success and money and fame and glory as if I have that, everything will be okay and I'll be, you know, content with my life and I'll be fulfilled. And then we're confused when we see people who actually get to that status and they don't feel that sense of relief that they thought they would. And I think that's because we are confusing the symbol of money with the actual goal of freedom and, you know, well-being. And so with that, I want to bring awareness to the fact that we're not chasing the money. We're not chasing the gold, right? We're chasing the ability to make our own decisions and to have more opportunities in front of us, which is provided with getting to your financial goals. And so with that, money is a tool that we are using in order to get to our most happy and fulfilled lives, but it's just the symbol. So let's not mistake the idea of, you know, wanting to do better in the world and wanting to be a part of this hustle mentality so that we can just get rich. Why do you want to get rich? We want to get rich so that we can get to that goal of freedom. And so, like I said, it's a symbol. It's not the actual thing that we're chasing after. We're chasing after some kind of purpose, fulfillment, some kind of peace within ourselves. So with that, in our hustle culture, you know, especially in America, it's a go, 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 kind of escape, try to beat the game, try to beat the rat race kind of mentality. But what happens with that is we get really worn down. You know, it leads to anxiety, it leads to depression, it leads to burnout, crash out, because we think that we have to do it now. Everything needs to be rushed. But I've found that lately I've been making more progress in my life, and I've been seeing the goals and the actual work come out of what I've been doing when I kind of let go of the reins and stop trying to control everything and push it into my time frame. Because if I've learned anything from life, it's you think that things are going to happen within a certain time frame and you can plan for the future, blah, blah, blah. But what you don't see is the bigger picture. And it isn't until hindsight, when you're already out of the moment and that phase of your life has passed, that you look back and you say, oh, that's why it had to take a little bit longer. I had to learn these lessons along the way. I had to do X, Y, and Z. That's why I didn't have the mindset. That's a big one too. I didn't have the mindset. And that's why it didn't come to me when I wanted it. And it's funny too that I say that, because I've also found in my life that whenever I want something really, really badly and I'm manifesting it and I'm working towards it, by the time that I actually get it, I'm already on to the next goal. You never really get the things that you want in this life at the time where you're like, it's going to make such a difference in my life and it's going to fix everything and blah, blah, blah. For example, let's say we're all Gen Z. So let's say back in like 2016, the Instagram really started popping off, and all that people in high school wanted to do was take pictures and look good on Instagram. And if you had the cool Instagram feed, you were like hot shit, right? And that's what everybody, you know, started to do, try to build up their Instagram. And it became a culture. It became like a part of society. Like, so much pressure was put on social media. You couldn't post any picture. You had to look absolutely perfect. And that's a whole other issue that we've been dealing with. But eventually, I learned how to build up my Instagram because I grew up in that kind of phase. But by the time I did it, by the time I had all of the, you know, things that 16-year-old me thought were so cool, I no longer cared about it. And then I go into college and it's the same kind of process. I want this, I want this, I want this. Even like my first apartment, I want it so bad, I want it so bad. And then when you get it, you're already on to the next goal. And we kind of forget to appreciate how far we came to even get what our past selves wanted. And so I think that as I grow and as I mature, it's very much that. It's the fact that, we want everything right away, but it isn't until you like change your mindset and you change your like energy that you receive the things that you want. And then by the time you receive them, you kind of like are already on to the next thing. It doesn't have so much status on it. It doesn't have so much like weight in your life. And so with like the hustle mentality, we're constantly want, but we forget that it's a process. Like it is a process to grow into the person that we want to be. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not something that, I'm going to work on it and I'll have it in a month or 6 months or even a year. It's something that you like compounds like interest. It's constantly compounding. And I think that when we put so much pressure on ourselves to have everything right there in front of us and to make it really fast and make it on our own timelines, we almost set ourselves up for disappointment because life doesn't happen on our timelines. It happens on the timeline it's supposed to happen on. It's like completely out of our control. And that's why things take longer, but they mean more when you wait. They mean more when you actually have the patience and the gratitude and you enjoy the process. They mean more. And when I say enjoy the process, I mean a big part of RD2H is that I want to push you guys to find what actually interests you. Like everybody needs a job. It's just the world that we live in. Everybody needs some kind of financial structure. They need some kind of income. But you can find that income doing something you love. And I think that we get so scared of, we have to do this, we have to do that. We take the safe routes, but we are capable of finding something that actually genuinely interests us and we love to pursue our careers with. And I think we're kind of losing that mentality of like, yes, you are able to do it. And I said it on the last podcast, if most of us aren't working towards the things that we actually love and our passions, then the competition gets a lot less. So there is kind of a competitive advantage there to the fact that a lot of us, put our passions on the back burner. But if you're willing to like step up and not put your passions on the back burner, there's a lot less competition going around. And, they say all the time that work consumes most of our daily lives. So why not do something that you love? I'm a big believer that you can get anywhere that you want to go in this life, but it's going to take 5 years. You have to know where you're going. You have to be consistent with it. And you have to give it at least 5 years to become great. But if you're constantly working on that thing, then there is no reason why it can't be you. And I think that's like the main idea I push on this show because there's such a lack mentality going around and there's literally no reason why it can't be you. So I think that like just accepting the fact that it's not in your timeline, and if you're controlling everything that you can control and doing what you need to like do and like what you need to do, then everything else kind of works itself out and like falls into play. At least that's what I've found. And I'm not saying that, with this hustle mentality in this episode of Cycles, I'm not saying that just because you know that you go through cycles and that you'll have these up periods of go and these down periods of maybe not doing so much, that you can use that as an excuse to not do so much. I think that we need to have a certain amount of self-awareness in the fact that, we do have these cycles where we're constantly working and then not working, but you have to know yourself and have enough self-awareness to know if you're like in a period of rest or if you're in a period of excuses. And I think that's a fine line where, obviously we do have periods where we're not doing as much and we need rest and we need to, compile ourselves and our thoughts before we can go into another phase of work and, pushing ourselves. But I think that there's a fine line between being in that phase and just making excuses for yourself to not, start and get going. Like, how many of us say, oh, I'll start on Monday, and then Monday comes and we'll start on Friday, and it just keeps going. The cycle keeps repeating itself. So for me, when I started this growth journey, it was very much at the beginning. I needed that work kind of hustle mentality. There was no way around it. I needed to push myself as hard as I could in order to get out of this like pit that I had created of just not being who I wanted to be. And I say, like, when you find you are in a hole, stop digging. And as soon as you realize that you've dug yourself into the hole and you stop digging, that it's easier to get your way out. If you keep digging, it's going to be longer and longer before you can get your way out. And so have the self-awareness to know if you're in the hole. Like at the moment, I'm not in the hole. I'm working, and I need those rest periods to, get back on track and to continue to push the things I want to do in this life. But back then, when I first started my healing journey, I was at a deficit. I was literally trying to put my life back together. And in order to do that, I needed that hustle mentality. I needed that do not stop. Work work an extra hour, even if you're tired. Stay up all night trying to, get back on track. And it was that push and that mentality and that, I don't want to be like this anymore, and I'm going to work my ass off until I'm better, that got me out of that hole. And so I think you need to do an assessment on yourself and decide, which part are you at? Are you at a part where you need that go, go, go hustle mentality to get to your goals? Or are you a little bit further down the journey and you need to be able to tell yourself it's okay to take those rest periods. Tell yourself it's okay to go through the ups and downs of the cycle. Because with so long of that go, go, go mentality of trying to get myself here, now that I'm here, I have to reteach myself that, okay, well, it got us here, but now we need to take a step back and we need to adjust and we need to pivot and we need to see what is best for me at this certain circumstance that I'm at. Because what worked for you at a past version of yourself may not be the best thing that works for you now. And I think that is a really hard thing to grasp, because as humans, we don't like change. We don't like to change at all. It's very uncomfortable to go through change, but it's part of evolution. And with that, here's another amazing quote that goes with the whole change concept. This quote is from Sam Walton, who is the founder of Walmart. And he says, "To succeed in this world, you have to change all the time." And I think that change is very uncomfortable, but once you get through that first inherent transformation, you realize how wonderful change can be. And so as you grow into different versions of yourself, you have to be able to adjust and pivot and change constantly to fit into what this current version of yourself needs at the moment. And so for me back then, I needed that hustle mentality. And then it got so stuck in my brain that whenever I wasn't, on the grind or working really hard or staying up really late and doing the absolute most, I felt so bad about myself. I was like, oh, well, this is why we're not going to succeed. And this is why we're not going to get there, because I'm not putting in the work. And lately, it's been reteaching myself the idea that, cliche, as I said, but nothing in nature really grows all year round. So why do I expect myself to do the same? And another great quote I heard earlier in the week is, life is a wave, and you can either decide to learn how to surf or you can get tumbled down by the wave. It's your choice. And so with that, it's constantly with this growth journey and this healing journey, learning how to ride the wave, learning how to make your environment and your circumstances work in your best effort. And that starts with the way that you view the world and your perception of the world and how you are to change. And if you are willing to put the effort in to constantly pivot and change, because like the quote said from the founder of Walmart, to succeed in this world, you have to be constantly changing. There's just simply no way around it. And there's a lot of successful people, and I'm sure you've heard this before, get comfortable with rejection, get comfortable with failing. And I'm going to add, get comfortable with change, because in order to succeed in whatever field you want to succeed in, or to, just find some fulfillment and happiness in the work that you do or the life that you live, the lifestyle that you have to be willing to adapt and change, because we can't get to the new road without trying some different steps. If what was you were doing and the habits you were doing and the daily routine you had wasn't making you fulfilled and wasn't getting you to where you want to go, why do you think that continuing that cycle is going to get you to where you want to go? It is the definition of insanity, right? The idea of repeating the same steps and expecting a different result. So I think that with every step, like I said, I've been trying to pivot and say, what is good for me right now? And the latest battle that I've been fighting is that idea of, I need rest. I need to not be doing something every single moment of every single day. And that might actually get me further along to be doing quality things and actually gaining some value from the things that I'm doing and putting my 100% into it instead of putting like a 20% effort into a million different aspects of my life. I'm trying to hone down more on that and stop this idea of I have to go, go, go all the time. And another thing that I've, learned is when we take that step back and like stop putting the pressure on ourselves to fit into societal norms and fit into like what everybody else says is success and like take a step back and really define success for ourselves. I found that when I made that definition of what success would look like for me, I needed to unlearn a lot of like societal habits, whether it be that go, go, go mentality or this idea of wealth and 1% or, status quo and fame and all of this. I had to unlearn that just because, it's tradition that it's popular and it's, what is seen as success doesn't mean it's going to bring me the fulfillment that I'm looking for. And it doesn't matter how other people view my life or how other people, think that I'm doing well or I'm not doing well. That doesn't matter. What really matters is how I feel on a day-to-day basis when I'm going through my own life. So a lot of it also has been unlearning that just because it's tradition and just because a majority of people say it's right doesn't make it so. Like just because certain things are viewed as, success and popular and blah, 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 and it's been throughout generations and whatever, tradition, status quo, and societal norms doesn't mean it's right. It just means a majority of people agree with it. And so when you start to think for yourself and define what success means for you rather than defining what you think other people will approve of, I think that is your gateway to building a life for yourself that you can actually like be excited to wake up to in the morning and be happy that you're, alive and being able to do all the things that you want to do. But, nobody's coming to save you. It starts with you and your decision to get down that path, which, like everybody says, is a narrow path because we're constantly following the herd telling us what happiness looks like, and whether that be, applying it to the symbols of monetary status, like I said, or certain career lines or status quos or whatever. That is not going to bring you the fulfillment that you're looking for. It's going to happen throughout whatever you decide is actually right for you. So going into topic 2, I want us to understand how it's not just us that needs breaks. I mean, this is a natural thing that we can see throughout biology, nature, just the way that our world works, that most things happen in cycles. And for us to think that our progress or our lives are any different or an exception is naive, because everything happens in cycles when it comes to the way that our world works. And to start that, an example is our circadian rhythm. We have to get a certain amount of REM sleep at night. We have to constantly go through the cycle of getting our 9 hours, getting our REM sleep, going into, that kind of state of mind in order to continue our day and continue the cycle. We have cycles from day to night. We have cycles for our menstrual cycles. Our body goes through cycles. Lunar phases go through cycles. Astrology goes through cycles. Nature goes through cycles when it comes to the seasons, when it comes to harvest times. Everything grows in cycles, yet there's this idea that if you're not constantly progressing every single day and you're not on this hustle grind mentality, then you're not going to get anywhere. But in reality, it happens in cycles in the natural order that it's supposed to. And I think that a lot of us need to start to look at our lives, and this is something I've been doing as well, is looking at our lives as if they're like little baby children. Because look at how fast a child grows and develops. I mean, between ages 0 to 5, they go from being absolutely nonverbal to being able to like actually point things out, talk, walk, do all of these things. And if you look at throughout childhood, every single year there's a massive difference of growth, yet it doesn't happen like right away, right in front of our eyes. You look back on the year and you see how much growth happened. And so our lives and our careers should be looked at in the same way that we look at as a child. This is our child, us building our dream life, us building building the person that we want to be. It's a child and you're the parent. And so you need to like treat yourself. And again, this is like what I've been learning and been trying to implement into my life, you need to treat yourself as if you're your own parent. Make sure that you're getting the rest that you need. Make sure that you are working on your goals the way that you need to be doing, not putting too much pressure on yourself, encouraging yourself. That's a big one, because like we are so quick to encourage others and to show up for others, but we don't do it for ourselves. So when you start to look at your dream reality or your dream person, or, you know, whatever goal it is that you want to get to as your little baby, a child that you are growing from day one, you get a little bit more of a mindset that it's going to take time. As long as you see that progress throughout time, that means you're going in the right direction. But to think it's going to happen all at once is where we kind of get mistaken. We want that immediate satisfaction, but real lasting satisfaction and fulfillment doesn't happen immediately. It happens over time. It happens with work. It happens with patience and growth and, you know, changing yourself and your perspectives. But it wouldn't be as rewarding if it happened with immediate satisfaction. And that's a problem that we're having lately, right? That immediate satisfaction, those hits of dopamine, where we don't need to really do anything to get that dopamine boost of, you know, validation. And so we're not putting our efforts into what we actually love to do. But when you get that patience and you like understand that everything has its own timeline and you're willing to just do what is in your control and let everything else flow, it gets a little bit better, and you build some kind of lasting fulfillment, some kind of lasting dopamine and lasting serotonin boost, where it doesn't just deplete and you have to go chase it again, because you're actually building something that will last for a while and bring you that kind of inherent fulfillment that you're looking for. So I'm going to go over this growth chart that I found, and I found very interesting. And it basically is like a growth cycle, and it provides 6 phases of, you know, the growth cycle and how we're constantly as human beings going through the cycle over and over again. And that's how we learn to evolve and to become the better version of ourselves. So the steps for the growth cycle are 1, define, 2, align, 3, flow, 4, grow, 5, evolve, and 6, repeat. And so starting with define, like I was saying, you can be anybody that you want to be. It's going to take about 5 years. It's going to take consistency. It's going to take, you know, actually paving your own path. But you can be anybody that you want to be, but you need to define that. So step 1 is like when you get to the point where you're like, I don't like who I am anymore. I don't know why I'm going down this path, and I need to make some changes in my life. That's where you go step 1. You define and outline what it is that you want to change in your life. You define how it is that you're going to get there and what success and fulfillment is going to look like for you. And if you don't have that defined, you can't get anywhere. Like, how are you going to get to the place you want to go if you don't have the address, if you don't know the destination, if you don't have maps pulled up? You're going to get lost and you're just going to keep driving in the wrong direction. So define is very important, to do some introspect and to really like ask yourself, what is it that I want out of this life, and how am I going to get there? And to kind of like cultivate that. And it doesn't need to be like a full plan, X, Y, and Z, thought out, amazing, but you have to start to get to know yourself. Define is like the time where you start to get to know yourself and you start to ask those big questions and try to figure out what it is that interests you. After define, we go into align. And align is where you start to create those steps for you. Okay, well, now I know where I want to get to and like who I want to be. How am I going to get there though? Maybe I start, if my define is I want to be a healthier person. I want to, you know, be able to do outdoor stuff and to stop not being able to go on hikes and go out on activities with my friends. I want to be a healthier person that doesn't constantly stress about my well-being. So that's your define, becoming that healthier person. And then align, how are you going to get there? What are the steps that you're going to take to get there? And that could be, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. I'm going to start eating healthier. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to get to my define. And so it's kind of like a plan in step 2. Step 3 would be the flow, and the flow takes a while. It takes a while to get to the point where you are, because during Define and Align, what are you doing? You're at war with yourself. You're battling that past version of yourself. You're battling who you were versus who you want to be. And that is honestly a war within yourself. And if you have made it through that Define and Align era, congratulations to you, because each and every one of us does it to some degree or some level. And it's a war between the past version of yourself and the person that you want to be. But once you start to win that war and you start to get over, the past inhibiting habits that you had or the lifestyle that you had, you start to get into a flow where everything's just easier. Everything's like, aligning, whether it be externally, things just happen to be working in your favor, or you just have the energy and the ideas and things just keep going. You get into that flow kind of stage. And I would say that is the most like rewarding part of the journey, where you feel like, oh, okay, things are actually working. The Define and Align is working. The battles I'm fighting with myself is working. I'm seeing the change in my life. Things are starting to go good again. And it brings you like more serotonin than anything on the internet could ever give you, or anything, outside of yourself could ever give you, to know that you have conquered yourself and your mind, and you start to get into this flow phase. After the flow phase, we get into the grow phase, where, it actually starts to be implemented into your life. It's not just, I want to be better. It's like, I am better. I am getting better. I am a different person than I was. And I mean, that's ultimately what we're going for, and what we shoot for here at RD2H is to be the better person that we are, and that I know we can be. And so during that grow kind of period, you're able to kind of see that growth and make it inherently who you are, to change those habits within like a spiritual, deeper level than just, I want to be better. You are now like showing, proving, and working as if you are that better person. And very often it goes back between flow and grow, where, growth is not linear. And that's like a giant part of the idea that I'm pushing on this episode. It's not linear. You're going to go through phases where you're doing so well, and then all of a sudden you like lose that momentum. And then you start up again, and you go back and forth. But like throughout those back and forth of doing way better, not doing as better, doing way better, not doing as better, you'll start to notice that the times that you're doing like not better are still better than where you started. Like, I think that has been a very rewarding part of this process as well, is the fact that I do like notice when I get into kind of lack habits or lack periods of, whether it be rest or whether it be just me not working. But every time that I fall back a step or two into those kind of bad habits, bad routines, bad periods of not doing as much or not having as much progression, I can sit back and I can analyze, and I can be honest with myself and say, even though I'm in a period of lack right now, or a period of rest, and I'm not doing as much as I know I could be doing, the amount I'm doing is still more than the best my old version of me used to be. So like when I look back on a year or two, my worst day today is still better than one of my best days 2 years ago. And like, that is the progress that we're looking for, but it didn't happen overnight. It took me 2 years to get here. And it isn't until I look back and I can really like analyze this journey and say that I've made that progress. But in the moment, it doesn't feel like anything's happening or there's any difference being made. But I have to like be able and be self-aware to give myself that credit when I deserve that credit. The last stage is evolve, and that's like when those habits are officially in and it just becomes a part of you, who you are. Like, for example, 2 years ago, I started this podcast and I was just recording on my phone. Now I'm in the studio pretty much every week. I'm downloading episodes. It is like now inherently like a part of me. It's part of my everyday, lifestyle, because I love what I do and I love editing and I love doing all this stuff. But it didn't start like that. It's through those processes of define, align, flow, grow, evolve, repeat that I was able to get here. And now I'm at a point of evolve where I'm like genuinely not the person I was when I started these episodes 2 years ago. And like I went through every single one of those stages that I mentioned. And it's when you get to the evolve part that you're like, okay, well, I genuinely am not the same person I was. And it's kind of like that victory moment. But the thing is, with life, I find that every time that I think that I know it all and I think that I've made this progress and I'm like, finally, we're safe, we're here, we've done so much work, the cycle repeats and I'm back at define. And that recently happened to me where, I have been a much better person than I was 2 years ago, a more productive person, just all around a higher version of myself. And that's what I aimed to do when I created this podcast. But now we're like kind of the dust is settling. I've evolved and now I'm doing the define again, analyzing, okay, well, now that I'm here and I've won the war with myself, what's the next war? And obviously there's going to be breaks between that, but you are going to continue the cycle. Every time that you think it's done and you think that you've grown, another cycle comes and you realize you still have so much more to go. And so right now I'm back at the beginning with the define, where I'm like, okay, now that I've made all of these changes and now that I'm, happier with who I am and the work I'm producing and what I'm doing with my life and the direction I'm going in, it's time to redefine what that success looks for me and where I want to go, and to start the process all over again to get to that next step I want to get to. So it never ends. I mean, life is a constant battle of learning and evolving, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. I said it on last week's episode. If you're the same person you were 5 years ago, then what are we doing here? What is the point of life? What is the point if we're not constantly evolving? And it's kind of a process, like I said, that you need to get comfortable with and that you need to full and heartily accept and just enjoy the everyday process of it, because it's never going to end. And I think when we're constantly looking towards this end goal, looking towards this version of success, looking towards this, oh, I made it moment, we kind of get our own hopes up and disappointment, because even once you've made it to what you think is going to make you happy, it's not going to make you happy unless you build it on a foundation that is long lasting, a foundation that can continue to produce and serve you and continue to overfill your cup. If you're basing your goals and your lifestyle and what you want on societal traditions and norms and not on what is actually going to feed you day to day, feed your soul, then you're not going to evolve. You're not going to create that cycle. And I think that that stage of evolution is also when, things that you switch perspectives, things that used to matter so much to you and things that you thought were end all be all no longer hold any meaning or value. So we look at other people and we're like, oh, well, if I had that life, if I had that money, if I had X, Y, and Z, I'd be happy. Why aren't they happy? I'd be happy if I had all of that. But you don't understand that those kind of lifestyles, it still takes maintenance. You have to become the person that is able to maintain the kind of life that you want. You aren't given anything in this life, you earn it. And that goes for everything. Nobody's coming to save you. It's up to you to decide what kind of life you want to live. It's up to you to decide what path you're going to go on. And that's scary. That's scary to think that all of these decisions and all of this pressure is on you yourself. But if you're comparing yourself to others and you're saying, well, if I had that and once I have that, then I'll be happy, you're not realizing the amount of effort and, fulfillment that you have to get in order to get there. You have to enjoy the process. And I think that a big part of life is getting to the point where you enjoy that process, you love the process, and you're happy doing what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And the success follows. I mean, people say it all the time. Success follows when you're doing what you love. And so I think that we need to get to the point where we're able to outline what it is that is going to bring us that inherent happiness. Because when you're doing what you love every single day, you're going to get better at it, and it's just going to naturally happen. And I think when you force things in this lifetime, they're not for you. If you have to force something in order to bring it into your reality and you feel like you're constantly on a push and shove and at war, then it might not be for you. I mean, whatever path that you're on and whatever is going to bring you that fulfillment isn't going to make you feel like crap all the time. Whatever it is that you're looking for, it's not going to stress you out 24/7. It's not, a good, healthy amount of stress is needed in order to get to our goals, but it shouldn't be crippling anxiety and stress on getting to our goals. Things do have a natural order of happening in a way that is good for our mental health and good for our sustainable fulfillment in the future. And so I urge you guys, when you're thinking of how you're going to, build your growth cycle, how you're going to define, align, flow, grow, evolve, and repeat, build a foundation for yourself that allows you to find a long-lasting fulfillment. Don't start on a shitty foundation that is going to collapse when you realize that that was inherently and spiritually never for you. Find what actually, makes you excited when you hear about it, the topics that make you excited, or, the subjects or the work or whatever it may be. Like, choose a path that is actually going to bring you purpose, peace, and fulfillment instead of chasing the money. And I think the money will follow. But like I was saying with this entire episode, it's a cycle. It goes up and down. You go through growth periods. You take 2 steps back. You take 3 steps forward. You take 1 step back. You take 1 step forward. It's not a linear progression, but I think that finding some kind of, patience within the process and finding some love in the work you do helps it to get easier, to not put so much pressure on yourself to make everything happen right away, because it's just not going to happen right away. And it's the people that find that kind of stability and balance and patience and consistency and just keep going for an absurd amount of time without results because they're loving what they do, that actually reach that success factor that each and every one of us are looking for, that, I'm just living my life and I'm loving what I'm doing, and that fulfillment. It happens when you decide to dedicate yourself into just patience, peace, finding that balance. Like I said, finding that your own path, paving your own path, because you're not going to get new things and do extraordinary things by following the herd and following what everybody else is doing. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode. But overall, I want to urge you guys to be kind to yourselves, to, try to shift your mentality into, how am I learning lessons from this? What is this teaching me? And for me right now, I'm learning a big lesson of what I've been talking about: patience and slow growth and, cycles and seasonal up and downs. It doesn't happen linearly, and I'm learning to enjoy the process. And so don't get down at yourself when you are in a period of not go, but still be honest with yourself enough and be self-aware to know, am I in a lack period? Am I in a period of rest? Or am I making excuses for myself? Because there's 2 different things. So people who, people who get down on themselves because they're not working hard enough and they're unhealthily adding that stress to themselves, and people who add stress to themselves because they make so many excuses for not starting that also leads to a stress, anxiety, depression, and inability to just get going. So understand where you are in that growth cycle. One I would say is in the evolve kind of era, where the other's in the define. Know where you are in the cycle so that you can start to, not be so hard on yourself when you're in those kind of rut eras, and realize that everything's happening for a reason. Everything's teaching you something. And the more that we get into this growth journey and the more that we evolve, learn patience, learn the way of the world, learn how, things grow, the better off we are, and the better off we are to ourselves, because we're kinder to ourselves when we take those steps back, because we understand those steps back are leading to steps forward. There is no success without failure. There is no, big strides forward without taking a few strides back. We live in a world of duality where you can't have one without the other. So the sooner that you get comfortable with those, kind of lower vibrational periods, those failures, those frustration periods, and teach yourself to see a more positive outlook on the negative things that happen in life, the further that you'll be able to get, because you'll find some kind of peace, happiness, and just fulfillment within the journey of seeing your progress come to reality and understanding that those failures are just part of the journey. So like I said, I'm going to end that episode here. Love you guys, and I'll see you next week for another episode of RD2H Road to Happiness. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram, X, Lemonade, YouTube. They're all at RD2H Podcast. Love you guys. And like always, keep striving to be the best version of you. We're just trying to be better today than we were yesterday. Love you guys, and see you next week. Bye.